try to measure the growth of the movement, as we call it. I mean, how fast has collaborative grown? And we really don't have the hard data that we'd like to have. I mean, nobody knows exactly how many cases, and we don't know even exactly how many professionals are trained. I mean, I hear numbers from anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000. I mean, my guess is somewhere in that $10,000 to $20,000 range, just from piecing together information we have from the trainers we have, a number of times they've trained. And of course, now that more training of collaborative is starting to be done locally by local groups train their own members, it really becomes harder and harder to do that. But we have that number, and the number of trained people we can only guess at. The number of collaborative cases we really can only guess at. The number of groups around the world we can kind of gauge. There's like 400 or 500, and then we can gauge the number of IACP members, which has been a really interesting, steady marked growth of its own, and we're up over 3,000 now. We may be near 4,000 by the end of the year. 4 or 5 years ago, I think we were 200, and it's just been growing and growing. And the IACP professionals really represent, I think, for the most part, the leaders in the collaborative community. And so, that growth of leadership and growth of people that are committed to it is a great benchmark. And yet there's still so far to go. I mean, there's part of me that's amazed that it's 4,000 or 3,000, and other part of me thinks it should be 20,000. And I guess we all get impatient with that. But it's what I like about the kind of the change the world, the idea of everybody having a choice thing, is that to me it's a lot like what teachers have. I mean, if I wasn't doing this, teaching is something I would love to do, because I think teachers have the ability to impact things on a generational level. If you make a difference in a child's life, their life gets better, and so do their children, and so on. And I think the same thing can happen here, particularly within family law, is that even a slight difference in how somebody's divorce went on can really change things for a generation, and it's exciting to be a part of that. Now, I've spoken about all this in the context of family law, because that's really all I do, and I'm interested in, I hope the civil part of the collaborative grows, and we've done everything we can to nurture that. But it is something that, for me, it's been the family part of it that's really drawn me to it. But it seems like the kind of principles that have worked to help family conflict will apply in at least a large number of areas, if not all areas, at least some other areas eventually. And it'd be great to see that kind of growth as well. And at the heart of this are just some very common principles we all have about how conflict should be resolved, or how people should even listen to each other. And so many things that have come out of the Harvard Negotiation Project, to a variety of other books and things about just how to listen and how to talk about conflict differently. My view of collaborative practice is maybe different than some, whereas I don't see it so much as a place on a continuum of alternate dispute resolution theories, although I explain it that way to clients because I think it's easier to see it as on a continuum. But I think in my view, in my mind's eye, it feels more like a different operating system. It's sort of like buying a Windows versus a Mac. I mean, you're operating under a different system, and the system is one that operates a few steps removed from the shadow of the courthouse. I mean, we're not completely removed from that shadow because our clients know they can go to court, but we're much more removed because we know as professionals we're not going to court. And once you step out of that shadow and step a few steps away, it is there's all sorts of things you can do. You can mediate, you can collaborate, you can work with coaches, you can do a whole variety of things. I think we've just started to look at what that might be. I think what Sue really got started is say, okay, if we stepped out of that shadow, if we have this agreement, we signed something saying we're not going to court, then we have to sit in a room with these clients and think about what we're going to do. And we have to start sharing ideas and start thinking about how to do this better. And in the last 19 years, a lot of great ideas have come out of that experience. But we need to keep doing that, because the more I practice, the more I realize there's just so much more to learn. And when you don't have the courtroom to rely upon, or at least if you act, if it's not there, then it really does require everyone to draw on different skills to think about how to resolve the conflict, and brings us deeper into some of the things that I think our clients care the most about. And what is the hardest for me to explain to my colleagues in Minnesota and elsewhere because I have a lot of good friends and attorneys who are good family law attorneys who don't do collaborative, don't really quite understand it. They're kind of like me saying, yeah, it's nice, you're friendly to each other, but big deal, we settle our cases, so why this business with the withdrawal agreement? And in fact, the longer collaboratives out there, sometimes the deeper that misunderstanding can be. They just don't see the withdrawal agreement as being anything important. And having had this conversation with people hundreds of times, I'm really convinced that there really isn't anything I can say that's really going to give them that experience. The only way to really get some sense of why this withdrawal agreement and these other things matter is to experience them. Because I know of almost no one who's really understood that without experiencing it. And at the same token, of the people I know who've been trained in collaborative and who've really experienced what goes on in the room, they almost all to a person understand it. And so it's really something that has to be gained in that way. I mean, when I describe it to my colleagues, the closest I can come is to say that I have sat in that room, they say a four-way lawyer meeting, 2 lawyers, 2 clients, in a traditional setting where we might go to court hundreds of times. And I've now sat in that room in a collaborative setting hundreds of times. And it's night and day different. The difference in quality and the feel and the energy is different in ways that they can only imagine. And I'm not suggesting that every case unfolds that way, because some cases don't. It goes well, and some cases sort of just settle. But I witness things and experience things at a deeper resolution, as they call it, in front of me that literally bring tears to my eyes at times that I never saw happen elsewhere. Never had the ability to see that happen or even help create an environment where that might happen. I see on an almost a monthly basis situations where one spouse will say, boy, I think I need this amount of assistance. And the other spouse will say, no, I think you need more than that. I mean, well, they'll negotiate backwards. And it's just the opposite of the old stories we have about good people who spent $5,000 fighting over the vase or something, where the darkest element of people showed up at the table. And I've been in those cases, but I've also been in cases where the most benevolent spirit, I mean the most generous part of people, the part of them that really wanted to care about their children or even their ex-spouse. And it just becomes so clear that I can have more, the ability to get somebody to do something out of their sense of well-being or their integrity or their pride or their honor or morality, however you want to phrase it, is a different thing than trying to force somebody to do something. And it works in sometimes amazing ways. I mean, people come out and give of themselves in ways that I never would have imagined in my other practice. And again, the thing to emphasize, that doesn't happen in every case. Now, a lot of cases just settle and stuff, but to me it's about giving people the opportunity to get to that level. Because for people to do, what they gain is something far, far more than a divorce settlement. And that upside of a collaborative case, the upside possibility that clients themselves can generate is pretty amazing. Once you've really experienced it, I mean, the practitioners that have really experienced it, you really can't go back in any really true sense. I mean, you can do the other one, but you can't go back to thinking that it doesn't matter. And that's the hard transition piece. And I wish there was a way I could have some of my colleagues and friends just experience that so that they would understand that there is a difference. Now, it doesn't mean they have to do all their cases collaborative, or that we're not saying we're the only ones doing good work. And I think as a movement, we've learned some things there too, where I think early on we were at times self-righteous and smug, and would sometimes in our literature and our dialogue make it seem that everybody who wasn't doing collaborative or mediation was really part of some evil scorched earth type thing, and that's clearly not true. There are very good and noble people doing wonderful work outside of both of these processes, and we need to honor and respect that as much as anything. And yet we need to clarify why there is an option out there that's different than what those people might have understood, so that they can at least explain that to their clients, that there's, even if they don't practice it, I want them to at least explain in a responsible way that there may be an opportunity that they're not fully aware of.